Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Addis Dialogue with me, Shifarao Lako. Today on the show, we'll be talking about a host of issues when it comes to Ethiopia's quest to have access to sea outlets. In order to break it down for us, I am joined by Professor Mulatu Fekadu Zerihun. He is an esteemed Ethiopian scholar living and working in South Africa. He's head of the Department of Economics in the Faculty of Economics and Finance at the Tshwane University of Technology in Pretoria. And he's also actively engaged in different committee activities, including the Senate Committee. And he's recently been appointed as Professor Extraordinaire of Economics at the University of the Western Cape. He is my guest today, and he will share his insights when it comes to Ethiopia's quest to have access to sea outlets in light of the growing economy and population of this East African nation, and how justifiable the move taken by this East African country is. I'm your host, Shifarao Lako, and do stay with us. All right, Professor, welcome to your home country, Ethiopia, and of course to EBC's studio to give us your insights on Ethiopia's quest to have access to sea outlets. I really appreciate your time and your efforts and for coming here.
Thank you, Mr. Shifarao Lako. I really appreciate your warm welcome and generous introduction. Really it's my pleasure to be at Addis Dialogue today.
Yeah.
It gives me a great pleasure to unpack why Ethiopia is so obsessed about the access to the sea and naval base in the Red Sea. So it will be my pleasure and delight really to unpack this issue for the general public. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So just to kickstart our discussion, Prof, how do you assess Ethiopia's economic dimensions in its pursuit of having access to sea outlets? What are some of the economic dimensions in this regard?
Thank you. Before I go to the economic dimension, I would like to start where this dialogue really belongs in a broader spectrum of economics. So we have a branch of economics called economics of geography. So geography is becoming very important. You know, in early years, people do not mind actually about geography. But if you consider the Western countries, all their business capitals, all their capital cities are located in coastal areas. So when we talk about economics of geography, it also belongs to regional economics. You know, regional economics is all about locations, transport outlets, resource bases. You see, so all the endowments of a nation relative to other neighboring nations, we call are studied based on economics of geography. Yeah. And in its entirety is also studied using regional economics. So when we come back to the issue of what justifies the East African nation, my beloved country, Ethiopia, seeking access to the sea, and also for some security reasons, the government is also seeking naval base in Red Sea or any other adjacent water bodies close to Ethiopia. So really this is a very central issue for the existence of this ancient nation in Africa. Ethiopia had access to the sea for many thousand years. The current geographical location of Ethiopia may not represent the ancient nation of Ethiopia, before in Africa. Actually, the entire continent used to be named as Ethiopia. So now, given the push and the pull factors, now Ethiopia has currently is a landlocked country. It's very unfortunate. It's really disappointing. For a country of 3,000 years old to be landlocked in Horn of Africa, where it's not really far from the sea. either from Red Sea or Indian Ocean. So this is a central issue for the people of Ethiopia and the government of Ethiopia. Why is that? Ethiopia is, in recent years, the economic trajectory of Ethiopia is very promising. Actually, the growth and prosperity in Ethiopia is not only just for Ethiopians. This nation has been a generous nation for all Africa. When it comes to struggle for independence or economic prosperity, you know, the legacy of Ethiopia, the footprint of Ethiopia has been crystal clear all years. Therefore, keeping Ethiopia landlocked is a disadvantage for the entire continent, not just only for Africa, for the whole international community as well. Because Ethiopia is a country of close to 130 million people residing in this vast nation. So given the economic trajectory, given the population size, given its massive economic contribution for the Horn, for the East African region, and for the entire Africa, you see now keeping Ethiopia locked doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any political sense. It doesn't make any economic meaning. Therefore, now, especially after recent years, this issue is a hot issue now. Every Ethiopian discuss about this issue. Government is taking this issue seriously. Now the whole international community is also talking about this matter. Therefore, as I said, Ethiopia's prosperity and development, it will be shared among all neighboring nations. Therefore, it is essential to open Ethiopia for the global market and for the regional actors as well. Given this account, given this importance of Ethiopia in a global economy, you know, having access to the sea is obvious, and it should be materialized in a short period of time.
In what ways should Ethiopia's call to have access to sea outlets be justified in terms of, you know, reducing cost of trade, beefing up regional integration, and also reinforcing economic ties with neighbors, and of course beyond that?
Really, you mentioned very important points. You know, no nation is self-sufficient. Every nations on the globe are dependent. Okay, so Ethiopia has vast agricultural potential, which can feed most African countries. Okay, so the economic growth is booming, right? Therefore, trade and import-export is part and parcel of economic activity in the country. So Ethiopia's trade volume has been growing massively over the years. Therefore, now Ethiopia has been depending on Djibouti for access to the sea, for all maritime trade. You see, given the size of port in Djibouti, we cannot really, Ethiopia cannot facilitate all its trade operations just depending on one single port. So when we have diversified access to the sea, it helps to reduce transportation costs, transaction costs, right? And you know, Ethiopian exports are mostly perishable agricultural commodities, food items. So if a given ton of food or agricultural product stay in a port, you know, in a port where there is no facilities to keep the product safe, you know, it can be a total loss for the economy. Therefore, to avoid such transactional losses, actual economic losses, Ethiopia has to secure access to the sea in different parts of in different parts of the region. It can be in the coastal line of Eritrea or Somalia okay, or Sudan, Kenya, right?
Yeah.
So it is really a timely question and timely request to have diversified access to port, to manage economic activities in the country for the benefit of not just only Ethiopians, for all neighboring nations as well. Therefore, the justification for the quest for access to the sea can go from one to, we can list a lot. But in general, especially when it comes to trade and investment, you see, countries, as I said, no country is self-sufficient. Therefore, we also depend on foreign direct investment. We need to attract investors, economic actors from the rest of the world.
Yes.
So one of the requirements when investors join the Ethiopian economy is, do you have access to the sea?
Yeah.
Then the answer is no. Then, they are shy away. So investors can shy away. It affects their economic feasibility, the feasibility of their projects. Therefore, from different perspectives, the request for the access to the sea is justifiable. I think the whole international community now came to consensus that Ethiopia indeed needs access to the sea. Yeah,
that's a great idea, Prof. As you know, Ethiopia is strategically positioned in a very important part in the Horn of Africa. So in this regard, to what extent is Ethiopia's push to have access to sea outlets justifiable as a country that's strategically important country in the Horn of Africa?
You can see now Ethiopia neighbors 5 countries: Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya, and Somalia, and Djibouti. Okay, so Ethiopian landmass has close proximity to all those neighboring nations. So actually, when it comes to national boundaries, these are all products of colonial legacy, because Ethiopians, they have blood relation, ethnic and language relationship with all these neighboring nations.
Yeah.
Okay. Therefore, Ethiopia is strategically placed as a blessing, as a resource-endowed nation for all its neighbors. So given the fact that the government has been knocking doors of all the neighboring countries, some are willing, some are considering it, and I hope in near future this request is not just remain as a request. It can be materialized, it can be implemented for the benefit of all the nations in Horn of Africa, not just in Horn of Africa, in East Africa, and the rest as well. So when we see now, you see Ethiopia has a vast potential for agricultural production. It's fertile land, reliable rainfall, different agroclimatic zones, which makes the country in a comparative advantage for agricultural production. So Ethiopia can share its agricultural products with all neighboring countries. Now, the market by neighboring countries may not be enough for all the products of Ethiopia. Therefore, because Ethiopia has to trade with the Middle East, the Western countries like Western Europe and America, India, right? So in this projected economic development, Ethiopia really needs more reliable, secured access to the sea. Yeah.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
So, Professor, how can we frame Ethiopia's quest or drive to have access to sea outlets as a mutually beneficial strategy for regional cooperation rather than a unilateral pursuit? How can it be framed in such a way?
That's wonderful. Every national move, every national pursuit, be it for access to the sea or any economic endeavor should be mutually beneficial, right? So now sometimes when the request comes all of a sudden, it can be shocking. However, any person, any educated or even a layman, when we see Ethiopia as a potentially competitive country in many aspects, in many dimensions, when compared to the neighboring nations. So the only way what we can secure or we drive to have access for the sea, it must be a mutual one, okay? Mutual beneficial approach.
Like give and take.
Of course, yes, yes. So you see now, when Ethiopia requests access to sea from Somalia or Eritrea or Sudan or Kenya, that must be for the prosperity of all our neighboring nations, not a parasitic type of relationship. It's a mutual. So when we make trade with our neighboring nations, the gain from trade is magnificent. Okay, it's a really significant one, and used for the economic prosperity, social development in our neighboring nations. Therefore, everything we do should be done in a such way that it mutually benefits every neighboring nation. No war, no need to be antagonized, no hostility, okay? Because all the nations surrounding Ethiopia, 5 of them, we have really language relationship, ethnic groups living in both nations, okay?
Yes.
Therefore, we are naturally combined, naturally tied together, to live together, to prosper together, for the benefit of the wider Horn of Africa. Yes.
Yes. So how would Ethiopia's access to sea outlet beef up its trade opportunities and also its economic interdependence and cooperation among the countries in the Horn and beyond?
You see, now, as I said, I usually mention about the agricultural sector, where the mainstay of the country. But these days now, not only agricultural sector, the manufacturing sector is coming good. The industrial sector is also booming. So even the service sector, the telecommunication, the electricity. So there are a lot of potentials coming. Ethiopia is a country of good endowment. So when a country has access to the sea, a reliable one, diversified, okay, it should not be just one port, then in that case, it gives a competitive advantage, right? It gives a competitive advantage, which means the cost of production became lower, right? So now Ethiopia can sell its products abroad in a reasonably fair price. Then Ethiopian product became competitive elsewhere. So that makes Ethiopian products demanded by the international community, not only our neighbors. So the competitive advantage is, we can also translate the gain from trade to further the economic growth in the country and beyond. So the competitive advantage is one. Reduction in cost of transport is another one, okay? And again, mutual development of nations residing in Horn of Africa, it builds some sort of trust, Building trust should come first. When there is trust, now we can stand together for the common goal, for shared prosperity, right? So these are any person can understand these logics of Ethiopia. This is not intervening in any national integrity of any of our neighboring nations. This is just to secure access to the sea, to facilitate trade, okay, and other economic activities for the benefit of all the actors in the Horn. Therefore, it's competitive advantage, reduction in cost, and again, when Ethiopia has access to the sea, now, for example, now Ethiopia is accessing the port in Djibouti. You see now the facility, the logistics, and the volume of import and export is beyond the capacity of the port in Djibouti. So when we have diversified access to the sea, now it gives more facilitated, more technology-driven, more efficient shipment of goods and services to the neighboring countries as well as to other destinations. Therefore, in terms of efficiency, in terms of competitive advantage, in terms of shared prosperity, this is a win-win scenario for all parties involved. It's very unfortunate for a big nation like Ethiopia remain landlocked for the last more than 3 decades. Okay, it's very unfortunate. Okay, now why? Ethiopia is a powerhouse. Is a powerhouse in Africa and in its region, East Africa, particularly Horn of Africa. Actually, Ethiopia's being deprived from access to the sea, it is disadvantageous for its neighbors as well. Okay, so Ethiopia has been landlocked. Now, Ethiopia's economy could have been doubled or tripled if we had enough outlets in different parts. Like if we have different sea access in Indian Ocean or Red Sea or in the Gulf area, that can be a significant move. However, because you see now security is also a major issue. Now Ethiopia depends just only in one port. God forbid, what if there is some natural catastrophe or security problem, stopping the shipment of goods out and in from the port Djibouti. In Djibouti. It's like a death sentence, right? Therefore, I think the government took a very decisive role, awareing the neighboring nations that really, look, we are not in a good position. We are not facilitating our trade. The volume of trade we're supposed to produce, it can be agricultural product, industrial product, it can be doubled, tripled, right? Now, but because of just depending in one port, it has been disfavoring. It has been disadvantageous for private investors, okay, producers, importers, and exporters in Ethiopia. And the logistic in the port is so cumbersome. The cost is cumbersome. You see, that's one of the issues, again, brought into the economy in the form of inflation. So you can mention a lot of loss, a significant size of loss because of Ethiopia being landlocked for the last more than 3 decades.
The loss is clearly visible simply because Ethiopia is still a landlocked country. Let's hope the best is yet to come. Many thanks for your wonderful insights and for coming here and giving us this brilliant idea. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end of today's program. Many thanks to you as well for having been with us so far. Until I see you next time with yet another program, it's a goodbye from me, Shifa Raulak. Take care and stay safe.